Okay, so this is an in-depth analysis on This Is Miranda, original by Brombo. Funny video, very funny video. So we're gonna break down why it's so funny. Let me shrink my screen here. Alright.
Guys, this is Miranda. She's one of the boys.
So we get the initial statement. This is a good setup for any piece of media. You need to state, what is this about? We need a main subject, and we need to know what's going on. We have a main subject, that is Miranda. She's being introduced by this man. We can distinctly tell who is Miranda, because all the rest of them look the same. This guy, he's saying, "Hey, this is Miranda," pointing at him. Miranda is presumably a female name, at least in most places. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. And they have little hair, which is typically associated with stick figures with women. So, and we have him announcing that she is one of the boys. So that's good. That's good. Oh, so we can see this. So you see, they're having a big reaction. This is classic overreaction kind of comedy, where it's like something happens, or it's like, oh, okay, cool. But instead, they get very excited, presumably at the thought of having a woman as a part of one of the boys. So, we can see, hey, she's one of the boys, and we can see that they're having excitement, and that's a bit of funny comedy. Right, so here's another thing we can see. You can see they're slinking out the door. And also, if you look back at this man's earlier content, you can tell he has a better microphone, and they're moving so fluidly. We know he can do better animation, which suggests that the basic stylized, the basic stick figures, they're not even stylized. And the poor mic quality is meant to enhance the humor by giving an early 2000s sort of feel, despite this being made in March of 2021. Not pretty recently. Yeah, so that sort of captures this classic YouTube shitpost kind of aesthetic vibe, So let's see where it continues to. So the insinuation of I'm gonna have some alone time with Miranda is, of course, sexual intercourse. And so they're leaving so that he can be alone for sexual intercourse with Miranda. But here's where the real comedy comes in, where it's a bait and switch. So, what's funny about this is that, A, we see a bit of over-dramatic gore. That's always a funny. 2, we get a good bait and switch. Not only did he not want to have sexual intercourse with her, he didn't even like her, which brings up the question, which this is where the whole This Is Miranda lore comes from. Why did he introduce her to the boys? And why did he in fact go as far as to state that Miranda is one of the boys when she is in fact a girl? Presumably, don't quote me on that. I don't want to get into any Twitter drama. So, and so instead he hates her so much that he smashes her with a table. And also, we can see a bit of funny, wacky spatial manipulation here. We're going to dive into a little bit of lore theorizing here real quick. So this guy, not Miranda, we can see that he actually has extreme powers. Because you'll see this table doesn't appear to be very big. We can actually do pixel measurements to tell that it's it seems like it's almost the size of his body. If you were to lie on it, his legs would stick out, definitely, and his head. But as soon as he grabs it, it enlarges in size and is much bigger than him, as well as it shows that he can warp the size of objects, and he can shapeshift himself as well, as we see by his elongated arms. He's also not bound by normal human movement limitations, because he has his arms at a full arc rather than joints, which is very interesting. Also, he lives in a slanted world. You can see that the dimensions are slanted. So where this gets really interesting is in This Is Miranda number 2. So this is a classic sequel. It picks up right after the events of the previous. Miranda's just been smashed with the table. What's going to happen? Things are sure to get dramatic. So Miranda now has a voice actor. We've added to the cast. This is definitely going to add some drama. And we also got to switch that she's not dead. She's alive. He's done nothing. So Miranda must, by that method, be even more powerful. I would say that Miranda maybe created the universe. Maybe more. So this also demonstrates that he doesn't know what he did. This is sort of, what, I didn't know that it was a thing. This draws back to overreaction humor. What we see as a brutal act of domestic violence, him slamming Miranda with a table, he sees as nothing. Like, what's wrong?
What do you mean what? You just hit me with a fucking table.
Now, Miranda here is serving as the view for the audience. You see, she's pointing out how wacky this situation is, which gives him a vessel to express that's not wacky, which shows us in a little, it lets us peer into this world, you know?
Are you actually mad at me right now?
I'm mad. Why the
So now we're getting a little bit of real world kind of comedy. It draws to a parallel to a common situation, a bit of an argument between couples. They're not in a great space, maybe. And I don't know that they're a couple. Don't quote me on that. I don't want to get into Twitter drama. But they it's a bit of an argument, but it brings in the funny because it's not an argument over saying something mean. It's over smashing her with a table. And also we can see that Miranda appears to have some sort of super regenerative abilities because there is clearly bloodstains on the floor, lots of it, but she herself is not bleeding. Hey, so I feel like I didn't elaborate on this enough in the initial recording, but Miranda, from the bloodstains, we can tell that Miranda was bleeding a lot, but by the time she's gotten up, she's not bleeding at all. So all of her wounds must have closed, and by the size of those bloodstains, there was a lot of blood. They must have been pretty big gashes of blood, but now there's nothing. So she must have regenerated all of that very, very quickly, within about, 5 seconds. More nonsensical stuff. How could that be an accident? He clearly shouted that he hates her and slammed it down.
How was that an accident? You literally held it over your head and said, I hate you.
See, she points it out. That's serving as the eyes for the audience. You would have said, hey, that couldn't have been an accident, and then she points it out for you. And when it tells you what's funny, then you know it's really funny. Yep. So we're getting more character development. He seems to definitely have some anger problems. Seems like a lot of stress, but he has a hard work life environment. I'd definitely love to see Miranda 3 as a feature-length film. Also, I'd like to point out, we can say that if we just pull up his channel here. The first one was titled, Guys, This is Miranda. As where this one is just Miranda 2, a shortening of titles, something very classic in a classic trope in very serious movie films, where it shortens the title. It's like how Dunkin' Donuts went from Dunkin' Donuts to Dunkin', not Donuts. So we can see that there's definitely some theatrical releases coming soon with this. Okay, so now we can actually see some serious, interesting intercharacter drama. Miranda, she's making a good point. You can get angry, just don't hit me with a table. But she's being very aggressive. This could lead to maybe a divorce. I don't know if they're married. Don't quote me on that. I don't want to get into Twitter drama. And it abruptly cuts out. And that's where the comedy ends. And you see, it shows us, it's like this is just a peek into the situation. And again, I think this is going to be a lead into a trailer. My personal theory would be that she's going to get with one of the guys, one of the boys. But that's just my take.